Look at a flock of sheep huddling on a primordial steppe. The sheep that secures the center position will always stay warm, enjoy the lushest grass, and remain absolutely safe from the claws of wild beasts. Meanwhile, those pushed to the fringes must endure the snow, wind, and brutal risks every night. Humans operate according to this exact same cold principle of survival. The spatial position you occupy dictates your chances of survival and the resources you receive, even though the price to buy a standing ticket in the center is always skillfully shrouded behind sophisticated facades. People often lull themselves into complacency with flowery concepts when paying exorbitant sums for real estate in expensive, gated communities. They gossip about construction quality, landscape design, and synchronized amenities that offer a peak quality of life. That is merely the surface of a perfect shell designed to conceal a much deeper mechanism of stratification. The harsh truth is that when paying a sky-high price for a living space, the buyer is not paying for bricks, mortar, or mechanical square footage. They are paying for an invisible boundary. That massive price tag is a ruthless and highly effective filter, designed to weed out anyone who does not share the same financial might. Those who hold the upper hand understand very well the power of spatial classification and geographical isolation. When they gather into a community, their presence automatically establishes a zone of absolute safety. There, security is maintained flawlessly, roads are always smooth, and the air is always fresh. But all those privileges are not born from the compassion of urban planners. They are born from the collective bargaining power of a group sharing the same level of authority and wealth. By confining themselves within walled gardens, they proactively sever contact with the chaos and uncertainty of the outside world. They create an oasis where risk is neutralized to the maximum extent. Buying a home in these areas is, in essence, buying a shield, an underlying power to refuse to share space with the unpredictable elements of daily life. This spatial segregation is not just a matter of housing, it is a natural mechanism that creates zones of privilege, pushing the vulnerable into areas deprived of services and opportunities. The filter itself does not just block external intrusion, it also molds the psychology of those within. After living long enough in a world encased by financial barriers, human thinking automatically synchronizes. The composed aura of successful people is, in reality, the result of living in an environment purged of constant threats. While people in cramped areas must expend a vast amount of mental energy dealing with noise, conflict, and security anxieties, those in the inner circle have their full intellectual capacity to focus on calculating macro-level moves. The silence of an expensive neighborhood is a luxury commodity that preserves mental energy, allowing the brain to operate at peak efficiency. This is why spatial polarization continues to naturally deepen the divide without the need for any coercive laws. Our ancestors had a saying, selling a distant brother to buy a nearby neighbor, which sounds like a simple moral teaching about neighborly affection and helping each other in times of need. However, through the lens of pragmatic players on the social chessboard, a neighbor is not someone from whom you borrow a bunch of vegetables or an onion when you run out. A neighbor is a social asset. They are an undercurrent of information vital to one's career. The concept of social capital here does not stop at mere connection. It is the accumulation of relationship-based resources intended to create distinction and exclude those outside the network. Living next to the dealers does not mean you will knock on their doors every day to beg for benefits or borrow money. The power game operates much more subtly and smoothly than that. It lies in the most natural touchpoints of daily life, a greeting at the gym, a nod on a morning jog, or a few casual remarks during a neighborhood barbecue. In the world of the elite, valuable information is rarely found in newspapers or widely published reports. A sigh about an upcoming investment trend, a complaint about a policy change in the works, or a wink regarding a suburban planning project can be worth 10 years of sweat and tears for the prey struggling outside the circle. They do not connect in a forced or crudely calculating manner. The shared living environment itself creates a closed ecosystem where trust is established by default because everyone has passed through the same rigorous financial filter. In that world, psychological defensive barriers are automatically lowered. People treat each other with an implicit trust that the other party holds an equivalent status, and has no intention of eyeing their assets. In that atmosphere of safety, opportunities are dissected and distributed through brief snippets of conversation. No matter how hard those on the outside strive, they can never reach this source of information because, from the very beginning, they were not present in the same spatial context. You cannot accidentally overhear a billion-dollar secret if you do not have the right to step onto that private jogging track. Relationships become a form of asset capable of generating continuous profit. The most magnificent and sophisticated act of this spatial trap lies in the education system. Every year, countless parents grit their teeth and take out loans to tuck their children into schools with astronomical tuition fees. They cling to the belief that there lies a superior curriculum or a miraculous pedagogical method that will turn their child into an outstanding talent. The truth, once again, exposes itself much more coldly. Mathematical theorems and physical laws do not change according to the cost of tuition. What is truly being bought and priced on the invoice here is the peer ecosystem. Children studying in these schools are placed in a special incubator where standards of success, ambition, and a leadership mindset are the very air they breathe every day. When a child is surrounded by the offspring of those who hold the rules of the game, their vision is automatically programmed at an entirely different frequency. They do not discuss how to struggle just to make ends meet. They learn to talk about deals, influence, and how to dominate the flow of resources. The peer effect acts like an invisible hand molding their character. The mechanism of social contagion shows that an individual's academic results and behavior are strongly dictated by their surrounding network of friends, especially in closed networks, where these influences are magnified many times over. It forces children to chase an extremely high standard naturally, without the need for adult coercion or punishment. Seeing peers default toward great achievements reshapes the entire boundary of what is possible in a child's mind. At the same time, students tend to absorb the average performance level of their friend network, turning personal development into the collective evolution of a homogeneous group. Furthermore, educational activities in these areas are designed as power networking playgrounds reserved for parents. A school fundraising event is never merely a place to discuss children's grades. They are underground trading floors where adults assess each other's status, seek partners, and tighten alliances of interest. The bond between children is the perfect catalyst for parents to formalize business relationships. Once their children have become close friends, defensive barriers in business are automatically dismantled. Giant tuition fees are, in fact, membership fees for a power club, where profits from deals can fully offset the initial investment many times over. This is the art of using privilege to generate more privilege. More importantly, these childhood friendships are lifelong insurance contracts. Students from humble backgrounds completely lack this essential social capital. Meanwhile, students in the inner circle continuously reinforce their advantage through internal socializing. As they grow up, this network of friends automatically transforms into a business ecosystem, intertwined alliances that cannot be broken. They will prioritize hiring one another, funding each other's ideas, and protecting one another against all crises. Young people outside the circle, no matter how brilliant their intellect, will have to struggle to knock on every stranger's door, constantly proving their ability and facing thick defensive walls. Meanwhile, the children raised in that incubator need only pick up the phone to arrange a complex game. Shining stories of individual effort rising from adversity are constantly repeated to soothe the crowds at the edge of the step. Of course, individual will is a real constant. However, a person's actual value is controlled by the arithmetic mean of the people they interact with. Striving to rise in a resource-depleted environment is like swimming against a torrential flood, exhausting every drop of strength only to move forward by inches. Conversely, a person of average ability, when placed right in the middle of the rushing current of an upper-tier network, will easily be swept forward by the momentum of those around them. One's central position in a social network explains exactly the level of success an individual achieves. The environment acts as a massive amplifier of capability. People use real estate prices to buy safety outright, physical barriers to isolate risk, and sky-high tuition to monopolize future opportunities. The process of choosing friends to play with or choosing a place to live does not stop at personal preference. It is a strategic planning of one's survival position. The further one moves toward the core, the more fortified the protective walls become. All resources seem to automatically converge at one point, driven by the gravitational principle of homogeneous crowds. The true strength of power no longer lies in brandishing weapons to intimidate or forcing others to obey. It has evolved into a hidden art, lurking under the design of spatial boundaries to preserve dominance from one generation to the next. Signing a transfer of funds to step into an expensive neighborhood or a prestigious school is, in fact, an act of partitioning survival boundaries upon human destiny itself. Every hierarchy is perfectly hidden under the veneer of free market transactions, where everyone thinks they are buying ordinary commodities, unaware that they are buying a privilege card to dominate the outcome. When you witness someone willing to pour fortunes just to buy a resident card or a school uniform to step into a prearranged ecosystem, do you still believe that life is a level playing field where every drop of sweat is valued equally?